welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. We are on Facebook, just look for The Writer's Dream. We are also on ltveh.org. Just go on and look for videos. We are actually aired a few times a week. We are also on YouTube. You have to look for me, Linda Maria Frank, click on my picture, and about 200 interviews come up. And if you're a reader or a writer, you'll be very interested in the various kinds of advice that you'll get, the wonderful books you'll hear about, and it's a lot of Long Island talent, which there are a lot of talented Long Island people. We are also on Cablevision Long Island, all over the island, Thursdays, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's where you can find us. Without further ado, I am going to introduce our author and librarian, because what we're going to do today is we're going to do a show about from the reader's point of view. And the reason why I do this is because when you're writing a book, besides the wonderful artistic thrill that it is to write a book, you also should be thinking about who you're going to sell this book to, who's going to buy this book, who's going to look at this book. So from the reader's point of view is an attempt to find out from various people just exactly what it is that makes you write a book or read a book, pick a book to read. So our guest today is Linda Trott Dickman, and she has been a librarian from elementary school through college, and she's also an author. She's written 4 books that are on Amazon. Robes, The Art of Being Covered, Road Trip 2, On the Road Again, and The Air That I Breathe. So, Linda, tell us a little bit about your books. Before we get into picking books, tell us a little bit about your books.
Okay, specifically, there was a call to a National Poetry Month contest, and it was to write 30 poems in 30 days. And you got to pick.
I know that contest.
Right. So you got to pick the theme. You had 30 days to do it. And I think the book had to be in by May 5th. And so I took the first challenge and I got honorable mention, but I chose not to publish that book. The second book, I entered it maybe 5 times, and I write all the time. I write poetry all the time. If I'm sitting in a meeting, if I'm sitting in the choir loft, if I'm sitting anywhere, sometimes I'm driving and I'm talking into my device. So because I do that, it's not really hard for me to write 30 poems in 30 days. And not only that, but the pressure is good because you got to get it done. So that's how those books came to be. I don't know if you want to know about the themes for those books, but
sure.
I can tell you about.
Give us a little summary.
Can I show the first one?
Sure.
Okay, so this one is actually available right now on Amazon, and I'm pretty sure Barnes and Noble. And the way that it started was several years ago, my husband woke me up on Christmas morning and we went downstairs, and under the tree there were these 2 beautiful robes that were from Santa. One was purple, royal purple, and the other was black. And that made me think about the love that was behind them. And that's a central poem in the book. And so I started to think about what we're robed in every single day, where some of us are robed in dandelions, and some of us are robed in joy, and some of us are robed in water and salt and pine air. And so I started to think of all the things that we are robed in, and I wrote poems that fit with that theme. With the second book, The Air That I Breathe, I started to think about my favorite smells, pine trees. Again, orange. I love the smell of oranges. I love, there's sea salt on, the ocean. the coffee in the morning, bread baking across when you're on a road trip and you can smell at like 5 o'clock in the morning, the bakeries wafting across the world. So that's how I wrote the second one, thinking about all the things that I breathe in and in the locations that I breathe it in. The road trip was probably the one where I threw caution to the wind and decided to have fun. I wasn't under any pressure. I didn't care if I won or not. And I started to think about when we took road trips when I was a kid, my family would sing in the car. And not only did we sing, but we sang the Stars and Stripes Forever, which is not something with words.
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to figure that one out.
Yeah. So my dad would start off and my mother would join in, and we would take the piccolo part and whatever part was up, and we would sing it across. So I thought, well, what do you do on a road trip? You sing. So everywhere we went, I thought about a song. And I wrote lyrically. So we went to the coal miner's daughter. We went to her cafe, Loretta Lynn's cafe, for instance. And I started thinking about the song, The Coal Miner's Daughter. So when that book comes up and you see that, you can start to think of the lyric, the melody to the coal miner's daughter, but the words follow the rhythm of the coal miner's daughter. And that happened in a lot of places in both books. Although road trip is exciting for me because I took the biggest risk and I won first prize.
Excellent. Excellent. All sounds very, very enticing. So as a librarian, you see people come into the library and pick books. What do you see? What patterns do you see? Why do they pick certain books?
Some of them already know in their mind what they want. And so they come in focused and not dissuadable. Some come in and say things like, I need a book to read. I'm going on a trip. I need a book to read. I'm bored. I have to sit in state testing and I need a book to read. So I give them things that are, knowing them, it's very important to know your patrons, no matter whether they're big or small. And so I choose books that would appeal to kids and adults that would speak to their interests. And of course, there's a little bit of a reference interview that goes on. And over time, you get to know your patrons. So it's easy to say, ooh, I know so-and-so is going to like that book. And so I'm really good at remembering, Yeah.
Well, that's good. So the people who know what they want, generally, what are they looking for? What do they, like I have a few categories here of why people pick books. I have genre, I have author, I have recommendations, which is you. I have appearance, and I have the book blurb. So appearance and book blurb probably are people who are not set on a genre or an author. So.
Right.
So I would assume, and I shouldn't assume, I should let you talk about it. The people who are set in one direction, it's genre and author, right?
We had a patron in one of the libraries I worked in who had to read mysteries, would take nothing else. So the library developed a system for him because he would not be dissuaded. And every book in pencil had a circle around page 19. Because that was his signal that he'd already read it.
Wow.
So that was one way of giving him, honoring him, and keeping us on track with what he'd already read and what he was hoping to read. So that's one category. What was the other thing you said? You said genre and
author.
Oh yes, some people are already telling me about. I can't remember right now what the book is, but so-and-so's new book is coming out. And I said, this happens to be an author I don't read.
Diana Gabaldon, the new Outlander book.
That's it.
Yeah. Go Tell the Bees I'm Gone, and it's out on November 23rd, and I already pre-ordered it.
There you go. And so that's another way of knowing what's hot. I tend to read in different genres, but I'm aware of what people are looking for, and that's how I find out what's popular, by listening to my patrons talk about.
Yeah, but it works the other way too, because generally when you walk into the library, there are featured books. What makes you feature a book?
Specifically, in the school setting, if I know a class is coming in and they like certain things, bam, 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 up goes the display seconds before they walk in, or in the morning before the whole school walks in. If a teacher, for instance, wants the children to read nonfiction and she wants them all in a series, that's a pre-selection. So that will be a display on the tables, or I will book talk the books in class. My favorites, things I think need help getting some circulation, for which I ask the children to please read this and give me a target audience, which makes them take the focus off, do I have to read it, but puts the focus on who should read it after me. So that's just one of the ways. That's a few of the ways I do it, or have done it.
Okay, because the difference, I notice a difference between what a library will feature and what a bookstore will feature. The bookstores will feature best-selling authors. I mean, you walk into Barnes and Nobles and boom, you're bombarded with whoever is popular. I'm not going to pick an author, whoever is popular, and they've come out with a new book. But it's more interesting for me to go to the display case that has the staff's choices.
Yes, and the libraries do that as well. I have been a part of a staff where I was asked what my recommendation was for something, and I have given my recommendations, and that list is not only put out so that you can see staff picks, but there's also a bookmark often, or a list that comes out that you can pick up and follow your favorite librarian.
All right, but this is, let's get to my real question here. You, as a librarian, you see what people want, and you also feature books that you think people want. But you, as a person, okay, walking into a bookstore, all right, and you're looking for something brand new, okay, what is it about the book that attracts you?
It's not an easy question for me, because so much attracts me.
I know. All right, what makes you, of all the things that you're attracted to, why do you make the choice of one book? I know you never buy one book, you buy 6 at a time. But there's a reason why you pick those books. If it's
okay, so
forget your author, forget your genre, you're just looking for something brand new.
I look to see if it's a picture book, which I am an unabashed fan of picture books. It has to do with the cover art first, and then if the cover art misses me, then I look to see who wrote it. If I'm drawn to it and I can't explain why, I look to see who the author is. Sometimes it's the end cap. Sometimes you walk in and I see something featured, and either I say, why would they even think of featuring that book? Or, gee, that looks interesting, and I'll take a look at it. I will go to the bargain section if I have a subject that I'm looking for, poetry, flight, United States history. So sometimes I have a subject in mind and I go to the section. What makes me pick it up? Sometimes it's the title. If the title is catchy and it's appropriate, and I mean appropriate, for instance, I picked up a magazine today, just came in the mail, and it said, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." And I thought, oh, is this a Whitman book? And it's not. It's an article about a home in Maine that belonged to a sea captain. So at least there was that connection. It didn't make me reject the article because I was looking for, exact matchup, but it was close enough. So I will read the article. But in terms of a book, it's not dissimilar. but so much, if it's a picture book, for me, it's the cover.
Yeah, well, to me, it's the cover to begin with. No matter what it is, I can't help myself. I am attracted to an attractive cover, and then from there, I turn the book over and I read the blurb.
Yes,
I'm
I
really
have a,
not hung up on authors.
yeah, I'm not either, unless it
I have
was,
favorites.
yeah, Tommy DePaola. I love Tommy DePaola, the late Tommy DePaola. He was wonderful. I love Henry Cole. He's an illustrator and an author, and he is an avid birder. And his book, A Nest for Celeste, for instance, after I met Henry, I was so excited because all of his loves come together in that book.
Mm.
And so he did the illustrations, which were beautiful, and he also wrote the story, which was just as beautiful. But what happens to me is I pick the book up, and then I look at the inside flap, and then I read it backwards. I flip through the book, starting in the back.
Oh.
It's just a thing. I've done it all my career, and I never knew I did it until one of my colleagues came in and said, "Oh, you do the same thing I do. You read the book backwards." If it's nonfiction, I look at the index. Something about an index. Maybe it's a librarian thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I start to look for the history of who it is and where they're from. And if it's when it was published, or if it was published here first. I picked up a book the other day, Tea Party in the Woods. And I thought, Tea Party in the Woods? Wow, Teddy Bear's Picnic is one thing, but a tea party in the woods. And upon further investigation, I found out that it was a Japanese, originally published in Japan and brought over and translated. And it's just beautiful. So subjects.
You like titles, so you are attracted to titles.
Oh yeah, the words. I guess it's the poet in me. I've always done, but I mean, here, the fantastic flying books of Morris Lesmore. This is one of my favorite books ever. The illustrator is William Joyce, and everything is just, there's a precision about it, but there's also whimsy. And it's a story that became an Academy Award-winning short film. And I showed it, for instance, to my second graders, and they decided to come up with a new book club called the Book Doctors, and they did book repair in-house for 5, 6, 7 years. You know, their sisters and brothers joined, and we had a professional book repair person come in. New York Book Repair came in, and he taught them how to fix books.
Wow.
And they made News 12, and it was just amazing. It was amazing.
All there is, if you make News 12, you've done it. So your taste in books, I see, really ranges from children's books all the way up to adult. And how about fiction versus nonfiction? What is it about a nonfiction book that attracts people?
For me, there is an author who lives in Montana named Sneed Collard III, which is quite a moniker. And I picked up his book and started reading about the prairie, and his language was beautiful. I wasn't interested in the prairie. I wasn't at the time. And I picked that book up and I bought every other book he wrote that I could get my hands on because the language was beautiful.
So it's the writing.
Yes, there's also a book called Emily. It is about Emily Dickinson by Michael Bedard. And there's a whole section about the way the clouds look at themselves in the mirror of the puddles. So the language, just the illustrations were beautiful, but the language was just stunning.
Okay, so we have cover, we have title, we have language. Now, do your patrons, do you think your patrons do the same thing, or do you convey that to your patrons?
The best patrons I know, no, let me rephrase that. The patrons I know best are children. That's where I've done the majority of my work.
Okay.
So the way I would say, in answer to your question, I fostered it. If a box of books would come in, I would not open it until a class came in. And I would rip open the box like I always do, but then I would say, come smell this. I said, smell the new books.
But
And they
people
would.
are enamored by new books. That smell of a new book. I have people who, I like my Kindle simply because I can take it everywhere, and I do most of my reading when I'm eating lunch or dinner, and I only need one clean finger, whereas to try to hold a book and eat at the same time. But I know people who absolutely will not do Kindle because they love the smell of a new book.
So that's just one of the things I did. I would show them what, if I got books on preview, I would show the kids, and I would make them an active part of choosing what we bought. And then if a kid, I had a kid who would only eat ketchup for a while, and I don't mean exclusively, but ketchup was on everything, or he had a little food with his ketchup. I went out and bought the Heinz cookbook just for him because he loved it so. But then you get a patron that doesn't want to read anything else but shark books. And so I had to expand that child's universe by saying, well, where does the shark live? Let's look what it eats. Let's look at how many oceans have sharks. So there's ways of bringing them in, and there's ways of bringing them out.
Yeah, well, no, that's fair, because you're dealing with the most important readers, and that's kids, because they will, if they love to read when they're kids, they never lose that. And who is it? Thomas Jefferson said that a democracy demands an informed public, an educated public, an educated, he didn't use the word public, whatever, population, something like that, populace. And it's so important to get them to read.
Agreed.
And one of the most satisfying things to me as an author is when I visit schools and the kids like the books and they ask me all kinds of questions about the books. And I look at myself as a storyteller, because what I want to see in a book when I go into a bookstore is I want to get a glimpse of a story. Okay, and the story has to be pretty sophisticated for me. It has to have history in it, and the language has to be good too. So I may read a few pages, but basically I'm looking for a story. And I think that most people are. Now, since you are, let me ask you this one question, because we have just a couple of minutes left. As a writer, as well as a reader and a librarian, do your favorite authors' writing styles influence your writing?
Yes, indeed.
Hmm.
I love J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
And he's responsible for our engagement story. And so I look at his language. If I'm looking to write something of a lyrical poem, I get inspiration from reading his lyrical poems, in addition to some of the classics, but he's probably one of my favorite because everything's a song, and music heavily influences my writing.
Yes, you mentioned that you're in a chorus, a chorale.
I'm in a church choir. I have been in a church choir. We've been on somewhat of a break during this time, but I love sitting there. I cry through most of the things I love, but at least I cry in unison. So let's see. I think I've gotten away from your question. Could you please remind me?
Tolkien, I asked if your favorite authors influence your writing style.
Oh, yes. Sometimes what I will do is copy out a line just so that I can look at it and remember what that author did. Michael Bedard in Emily, for instance. There are just some books that have such incredible language, and I read them out loud, and I think I ingest them. Some of them just go in there and live, and as does the music. If the lyrics are amazing, it's in there.
Yeah.
So they influence me in that way. They're mentors.
So what's up for you in the future?
I'm working on a picture book about an aviatrix from Long Island.
Ooh,
Yes, I had one I actually got to speak to on the phone. Very excited about that. And I also have I have two more things that are actually coming. One is a book of prompts for children of all ages for poetry, and one is a book called the Library, a Life in Picture Books, and it includes a reading list, and it's a book of poems based on the picture books I love, and it includes a reading list at the end if you want to read all those books, because I
no,
can't stop being the librarian.
yeah, but that's so important. But I'm fascinated about this aviatrix because the last Annie Tillery book in my series is called The Mystery of the Lost Avenger. And it takes place in two times, and it's about the Avenger airplane that was built by Grumman during World War II. And my main character's great grandmother test flew them. So, because that's what women test flew the planes during World War II.
Yes,
Just the
yes,
men. They were
yes.
all
My
fighting.
my father worked for Grumman, so and he was in the Navy, so I know that's the Navy, you would think water, but my father was a pilot, so
Mm.
there's a lot of air influence here, and I am very excited about that project.
Yeah, the cradle of aviation.
And yes, yes,
Us.
yes, yes.
So I am thinking that we're pretty much out of time now. It was great to have you. I hope that we can collaborate in the future. You can be on the show as an author if you like, with all your books. So
That would be great.
yeah, I
Thank
think
you
that
so much.
that's our next step, to have you on as an author. And then you can read from your poetry books because you've really, I have a hard time with poetry, to tell you the truth. It isn't that I don't like it. I have a hard time with it because I can't do it. So, I mean, yeah, I could do that free verse stuff, but roses are red, violets are blue. I can't do. I can't carry a tune in a bucket. That whole lyrical thing is gone. So, anyway, I think my timer is off. I'm not sure. What I should see is the credits running, but